Welcome back. We're here on Mad About Markets, and today we're diving into the world of sneakers, and we have a special guest joining us now to take that forward. Mihir Joshi, a sneaker collector and the host of the MJ Show, which is an online show about all things entertainment, but importantly about sneakers. Mihir, thank you so much for joining us here. Please welcome to the show.
Mihir, thank you for coming. But before I, ask you anything, what are these shoes that you're wearing and how much are they worth?
These are called the Shattered Backboard 2.0.
Okay.
A new pair, a DS pair as it is called, would be about 90K right now.
90,000. These shoes are for 90,000.
A new pair because
security, just lock the doors and don't let him go. We'll steal his shoes before he gets out of the studio.
What did you say it was, a DSP?
A DS pair.
So
DS means dead stock, which is a brand new pair. So, a DS pair would be what, suppose you ordered a sneaker from Nike, it reaches you in a condition which is absolutely dead stock.
So is there a non-DS pair? How do you buy a pair of sneakers? Because this sounds like algorithms to us. DS.
No, so it's in India, the three legitimate ways of getting, say for instance, if I'm a Jordan collector, the three legitimate ways of getting sneakers brand new, which is DS, is either from the Nike website itself or from Veg Non-Veg or Super Kicks.
Okay. So fastest fingers first?
Pretty much that.
And
waking up at 7:30 in the morning.
Oh my God.
And what if you still don't get it? Because they're so limited, right? They sell out in many seconds.
So what happens is when you are competing to buy a sneaker on Nike or from Veg Non-Veg or Super Kicks, you're not only competing with other collectors, but you're also competing with a lot of resellers. So what happens is once the sale happens on these three platforms and the sneakers are sold out, you can assume that 70% of that stock approximately is with resellers, who will then sell it to collectors
at a much higher price.
At a higher price.
How long have you been collecting these sneakers, and why did you start?
So I've been collecting sneakers for about a year and a half, 2 years on a higher side, but I've been a collector for over 2 decades. I've been collecting comics, I've been collecting statues, I've been collecting music and movies. So I've always been a collector, but I fell in love with sneakers after watching the Last Dance documentary on Netflix.
Oh wow.
And that kind of rekindled, I just realized I'm 40 years old and I don't have a pair of Jordans. How is that possible? And now I've got I've got 28 Air Jordan 1s in the last 1.5
28?
28.
All the more reason for the security to just lock him out.
And find his address.
But, when you buy them, it's also considered an investment now.
Yeah.
You've been in the collection business, so to say, for the last 20 years. How do you collect these pairs? Tell us a little about your trades, because 90,000 rupees worth shoes. I'm sure you bought a few, you sold a few. Tell us a little about these trades.
So this especially was a very interesting thing. So one of the things that most collectors do is so resellers sell purely to make a profit. A lot of collectors also sell their collection to be able to buy something that they want to buy. So, for instance, if this was one of the other things that you'd want to do is not buy an expensive pair like this in a DS condition. So you've got 3-4 different ways of looking at sneakers. When resellers are selling it to you, they'll tell you it's a DS pair or a DSWT, which means dead stock with tags or dead stock.
That's new.
DSWT or DS basically is pretty much the same thing, which is brand new. It's absolutely new. It's come straight from the factory, or it's come straight from Veg Non-Veg or Super Kicks, and it's in a mint condition. Then there is something called VNDS, which is very near dead stock. Then there is something called pads, which is pass as dead stock, which means, maybe somebody just tried it on in a store, but it's pretty much brand new. And then, of course, there is used pairs. So used pairs are pairs which have been used by somebody, they've worn it for a fairly long period of time, and then they are selling it out. Like you said, it's an investment, because even a used pair, say suppose somebody bought this sneaker at some point of time at retail, they spent maybe 14,000, at that point in time 14,000 was the price of a sneaker, they probably spent 14,000 on it. When they sold it after having worn it for a little while, they still made a profit on it, because the price appreciated tremendously. This is a shoe with a tremendous history. What I love about collecting Jordan 1 specifically.
I get this entire story of people wanting to buy it for their history, the art part of it and all. At the end of the day, art is nothing but a product which has a story to it. What you're trying to say is that I can buy a pair for X amount, I can actually wear it, and by the end of the product life cycle, I can still be able to sell it for a much higher price. And how easy is it for one to sell, liquidate?
It's not that difficult. If it's a highly wide after pair, if it's something that collectors want, you could definitely sell it quite easily, because the moment a pair like this comes on the market, somebody is going to pick it up. Every pair will not appreciate in price. It's pretty much like
The stock market.
The stock market or like art, where, you know, if you buy something, it's not necessary that every art piece is going to appreciate. There's got to be something that happens with it which makes it appreciate. There's got to be some story connected to it which makes it go higher.
We've discussed so much about sneakers, but as always on Mad About Markets, we do talk about the yays and the mays of a topic. And let's go with the yays as always. I'm the yay this time. All right, and guess what we have for yays and mays? This is the magic. Let's go with the yays. The first yay, as per a Hypebeast and PwC Streetwear report, 62% of the consumers actually choose sneakers as their first purchase in streetwear. So that's a big yay. 2 out of 3 customers, or 66% consumers, don't believe that streetwear will ever go out of style. So once you buy it, it is timeless. Consumers are willing to spend up to 5 times more on streetwear than non-streetwear, and for that the sweet spot of pricing is close to $100 to $300. That's almost 7,500 to 22,000 Indian rupees. They say that social media is where they get their inspiration from, and 73% of the people that were responding to this survey were sub 25 years of age. So that licks all the boxes that we're talking about: high value, young people, internet penetration.
Well, Mangalam, I take your point and your love for shoes, and that therefore has to be taken with a pinch of salt. So for every yay, there is an equal and opposite may. If not equal and opposite, at least enough may. So without further ado, let me get you what doesn't work when we talk about the sneaker world. The first one is counterfeits, because you have these sneakers selling for 3 lakhs, 5 lakhs, whatnot. There are a lot of fakes also flooding the market that one has to be careful of. The second is reseller scams, because a lot of times you may be buying these pairs from people you may not have bought from before, and you're liable to fall for one of these scams. The third is inflation, because when you have inflation trending at 6 and 7%, discretionary spending does tend to come down. So you may not want to spend 20K or 30K on a pair of shoes alone. The fourth is unethical means of acquiring these pairs using bots and whatnot. And lastly, at the end of the day, it is addictive, and therefore these are some of the cons associated with the sneaker.
Well, Ritu, I take your point on counterfeiting, and that's actually one of the biggest problems of this culture. So Bhavisha, how does one tackle counterfeiting, and how do you tackle counterfeiting as a business owner?
Anything that is popular is going to get counterfeited, right? Like I remember when I was a kid, very popular books would come out, and you'd see them at the signals being counterfeited, and just sort of like piracy, like movies and stuff like that, right? Anything acquires that level of popularity and demand, especially with Veblen goods, is going to be counterfeited. Brands are doing a lot to try and tackle it. Brands could perhaps have a lot more newer releases to also tackle it. And from a customer or a consumer's point of view, I would say buy or purchase from trusted sources. I think the onus is on the customer as well to be able to not get hoodwinked into buying a counterfeit item. There are so many video tutorials, so many people who are in the business spend time trying to educate and spread awareness of how to spot, what the tag looks like, what the stitching looks like, what the label looks like. So pay attention, especially when people are dropping big bucks. Educate oneself to make sure that you're buying the real product.
Well, Mihir, you buy a lot of pairs yourself. Have you come across some fake pairs, and how are you able to identify them?
So one of the things that you need to do is buy from trusted sources. I mean, even if it's a reseller, you want to buy from a reseller who's got enough good references. You have a you have a conversation with them.
Sure, but that may not always be possible. You're looking for a pair, it's only available with a certain reseller. Do you go ahead and buy it, and how do you?
You wouldn't buy it until you're guaranteed that the pair that you're going to get is legit. And there are apps, very simple apps where you can verify the authenticity of a shoe.
What are those apps?
There's an app called Legit Check. There's another app called Check. So essentially what they ask you to do is they'll ask you to take, say, 14, 15 different photos of your sneaker from different angles, from the inside, the insoles, the soles, the box and everything. You have to upload it onto the app, and the app comes back with a certificate which says it's legit or if it's not. And especially when you want to buy a high value pair, you want to make sure that there is an authenticity certificate along with that.
Just quickly, before I go back to our other guests, you spoke of these resellers. What is the average age like, and how much are they able to make reselling shoes?
I'd say the average age is 16 to 24. Wow. And on an average, I'd say most resellers are making anywhere between 1 and maybe 4 to 5 lakhs a month.
Well, Mihir, are sneakers the new stocks?
100%. I mean, I can't...
What proportion of your overall savings are in sneakers right now?
I'd say a significant portion. So the way I look at it is I always plan in my monthly budget. There's a certain part which goes towards entertainment, Right now, my entire entertainment budget goes towards sneakers.
Okay, on that note, Dhanish, let me put that question to you. That is our bigger question. Are sneakers the new stocks?
So I personally, in my portfolio, if we see my investments, I have invested 30 to 40% of my amount into sneakers. And as I told you that it's a new age asset, so all the Gen Z and young people are going to invest in sneakers. They are investing in sneakers. I know a lot of people around me who actually have invested in sneakers. So I think it can replace the stocks to a certain extent, but I'm sure stocks have a lot more quantity and they are more.
Well, Dhanish, that's the word coming in. It is a new asset class which may not replace stocks, but if you're responsible enough and if you do it well, you may make a fair amount of money. Thank you, in fact, Dhanish, Bhavisha, as well as Abhineet for inviting us into Veg Non-Veg, and Mihir for coming to the studio as well. With that, we are out of time on this edition of Mad About Markets. Ritu, have I convinced you?
Enough, I suppose.
All right.